What it do? You are listening to the Chronic and Shank Variety Conversation podcast for winners and really cool people, where two brains from two different countries and zero filters collide in conversations that go wherever the topic takes us.
We're your hosts. I'm Shank.
And I'm Chronic. We have a variety of conversations about things that we love.
And we love to share it with all of you people out there.
So, lighters unite, tune in, let's get into it, because if you're listening to this, you're already a winner and definitely really cool.
Today's conversation topic is superheroes and what makes us love them, or not love them, depending on the context.
Oh, and before we get started, remember to slap that subscribe button like it owes you money, show the like thumb some love.
So, Chronic, we are nerds when it comes to superheroes. We love them, comic books, cartoons, miscellaneous different, intellectual properties, but we love superheroes. We love people with gadgets, we love people with powers, but we should probably start off the episode talking about where we started and why we love.
Why do we, why the hell do we even dedicate our time? Why are we obsessed with these
instead of baseball
characters?
Instead of baseball cards, we gravitated towards comic books. Why?
Why? And I guess I should say right off the bat, so all of our nerd audience base out there and everybody knows that I never was into the comic books when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for good reason, and I'll explain that in a minute. And I think people would understand my reasoning for it. But I definitely, from a very young age, was into superheroes, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, like really young, and I still to this day, it's very close to one of my favorites, if not my favorite, just because my inner child won't let it go. Is the Hulk, because even though it's criticized today, and I'm sure it was criticized then, the 2003 Ang Lee Hulk.
Yeah, Edward Norton.
No, not that one.
No, wait, you're talking about
older. Eric Bana.
Eric Bana. Yeah. And so honestly, Bana, love Bana too. I didn't dislike it.
That's the thing is but as a kid, seeing that movie, that was wild. And that's where, I fell in love with the Hulk initially. And I think that jumped my interest into superheroes. I didn't know I knew there was Superman, but honestly, I wasn't a Superman kid. You know what I mean?
You lean towards Marvel.
I've been always a Marvel kid, DC. I liked Batman. That was cool, but it never was like my forte. I always was like, ooh, the Hulk. And then after that, it probably gravitated into, I remember watching The Punisher with Thomas Jane.
Oh my God, dog. One of my favorite movies of all time. Hands down, no question about it. Goated movie.
I did not know that I was a kid, young. I probably shouldn't have been watching it, but I did. I did not know
it wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as the one with Steven.
What's his name?
Oh, he passed away recently, and I feel terrible about it. He was in the new Star Wars.
I know you're talking about. Yep.
Steve, what is his name? I gotta Google it because I'll feel terrible if I don't. But it basically, what is it? Come on. Oh wait, hold on, I spelled it wrong. It was Ray Stevenson. Stevenson is what it was. I'm sorry for anybody out there. That was a great loss. He was a great actor, and his version. Now, as a kid, I would have been like, "Whoa, bro!" Holy man! But the Thomas Jane one had some moments that were action packed, but they were pretty tight to the chest.
Pretty tame.
Yeah.
Now, if I was a kid and I saw
especially
the
for the Punisher
adaptation, I'd have been freaked out, bro. I'd have been like, "Whoa, too much!" But because now as an adult, that is the Punisher. He played it perfectly. But okay, so when I saw the Punisher movie, I didn't know that was in correlation to a superhero movie. I thought it was just some dude on a revenge mission.
Yeah. One of those Mel Gibson movies where he's mad at people for doing something to his daughter. John Wick.
Where's my family?
But what did you take, my kid?
fucking the movie that really made me realize that I was like, oh, this is Marvel that I'm like feeding into a lot was actually 2007's Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage.
Oh
And
yeah, dude.
and the moment I really and I love Ghost Rider. That's one of my favorite
I love
characters
Nick
as well.
Cage. I
Um,
unabashedly love this. This is a Nick Cage fan podcast. We absolutely love Nick Cage here.
Nicolas Cage, say what you want about him. He's done his thing. He's made his mark, and you
Well,
know,
that's the thing is Nick Cage is unabashedly Nick Cage in everything that he does.
yes,
And some people hate that, but I could not love it more. I think just him doing his absolutely batshit crazy thing, it fit perfectly for Ghost Rider. Because before that, Ghost Rider was a fairly two-dimensional comic book character. In the comics, like the
right.
movie, you caught into him from the
You
movie. I
only,
grew up on
I think
comics.
he appeared in a couple of the cartoon series, but that was it.
Yeah, and even then, like it was very limited, and like he was very two-dimensional. He was very vengeance or like I hate being Ghost Rider. Those were his two modes. Like the two
Yep.
modes he had were when he was playing Johnny
There
Blaze,
wasn't a
being
lot of
like
depth to it.
he was being Johnny Blaze, and he was like I don't like being Ghost Rider. And then there was him being Ghost Rider, being like I'm vengeance. But then Nick Cage brought like he brought this like Nick Cagey energy to it, you know, and
Hmm.
that made that
Hmm.
movie absolutely phenomenal. Like
Yeah,
Ghost Rider
and
wouldn't piss fire ever,
no,
like
no.
in the comics, until Nick
Um,
Cage did it, and he changed the character.
and the thing about that movie in the 2007 one is it showed that really cool animation style how they did the Marvel logo, where it was like it showed Marvel, it got
With the
burned, and
comic
then it had
books
the
and like,
spikes come up. Well, it had
yeah,
the spikes come up, right? And I was like,
yeah,
oh, so that's Marvel. And I was like,
yeah,
that's what I'm watching. And then it all clicked with me. I was like, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Like, and I was sitting there thinking of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man from
yeah.
2002, which I don't know why I forgot to
And
mention
this is
that
the thing too.
one.
I love Tobey Maguire. I love Andrew Garfield, and I
Mhm.
love Tom Holland. I love all three of them for different reasons. I'm not going to bash any of their performances as Spider-Man.
They all did great.
We all got our like, you know, wetted our lips on Tobey Maguire.
So those two inner child heroes I hang on to
Yeah.
is Spider-Man and the Hulk,
And,
because obviously I saw Spider-Man as a kid. What kid did
yeah.
not? You know,
Yeah.
like what kid didn't? You know,
Yeah.
like that's it's Spider-Man. And then they had countless, animated series about him. And to touch on what you were saying about Tom Holland and the three actors that have portrayed
Yeah.
Spider-Man, I've always said,
We're not even gonna mention that stupid fan film that got made online because that guy just should never make another movie
no,
ever again.
absolutely not. But yeah,
I'm not gonna
this
mention
is
it by name.
not
Don't
going to
Google
mention it.
it. It didn't
Don't.
happen.
It's not worth it.
No.
Um, but you have Andrew Garfield, which I feel played the best Spider-Man, meaning
Yes.
the cockiness, the like really comical, accurate area of Spider-Man.
Yep.
He did phenomenal with. Tobey Maguire played a phenomenal Peter Parker, meaning the shy
The way I feel
awkwardness,
about Toby
doing his
is
thing.
that Toby did both of them fairly even. Like Toby did
Well, that's
like
where I
Spider-Man
felt Tom
and Peter
Holland did the
Parker
best.
and like he kind of
I
did them
felt
like balanced, like balanced a little bit. And I feel like with Tom Holland, he does it like the same as Tobey Maguire, but he leans more towards the Peter Parker side of things. You know what I mean? Like the I'm scared, I'm just a scared kid who like he plays that really well. Like
which
I'm
I'm
just a
excited to
scared kid.
see this new
Like
one that they're filming, because
yeah.
now he's supposed to be not that scared kid anymore. He's
No,
more
no,
confident.
they finally
So
did the like air quotes like oh they did it with
the
Mephisto in
arc,
they
they
did it
did the
with
arc.
yeah like they did it with Mephisto in the comic books but they did it with Stephen Strange in the
Well,
MCU.
also his Aunt May died, which
Yeah, well that's what I mean
that was
like
his
because
arc. You know,
Like Mephisto when that
spoilers.
happened like for the comic book fans, the Mephisto storyline, the people who don't know, in the comic books, when MJ died, he made a deal with Mephisto to bring her back to life. But the problem is part of that deal was that everybody alive would forget who he is, and that's how everybody
So
forgot.
that's how they kind of
But
intertwined the Doctor Strange
tying together the
spell and
whole
everything.
but that's what in the MCU they did it with Doctor Strange instead, which is cool because I love that. I love that about comic books is that you can change the story completely and still
Exactly.
tell the same
Yeah.
kind of story, but
Yep.
just like a completely different way, and you can borrow from different places and like rehash them in different exciting ways. And I think that they did great with doing Stephen Strange, doing Doctor Strange with his spell. That was a phenomenal way to work that storyline into the MCU. because it's way more believable than bringing in a literal demon. Like the MCU hasn't quite gone
Right.
there yet.
No, no, I
Like,
totally get what you mean. I
and so
totally get what you mean.
like the MCU
They
hasn't
still got
quite
to market it
with
towards kids.
Dormammu and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe, but like they haven't introduced
They
like
honestly still made
Dormammu.
thank you. They made him look pretty tame.
Yeah, and like I mean, like even though like like there are like otherworldly powers, they haven't done the whole Mephisto storyline, and rather than having it be MJ that died, they made it Aunt May, and Aunt May does die in the comic books, but it's actually because of Kingpin, and Peter Parker ends up beating the living shit out of Kingpin. That's a total different story, though.
Yes, I love. I We got to get into that
Yeah,
one day
we'll
when we
touch
go
on
to our
that.
lore and stuff
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's whenever Spider-Man finally quits holding back,
Yeah,
and
we'll
I
touch on
love
that.
when that
Yeah,
happens.
that's even before Superior Spider-Man when Doc Ock took over. Like that was actually like before that. So it's crazy. It's crazy. But with the comic books, yeah, like everybody forgot who Peter Parker was, but this actually is funny because it ties together once again our good buds Hulk and Spidey because there's only one creature in the universe that remembers who Peter Parker is after he wipes himself from everybody's memory, and it's the Hulk. Because the Hulk said thank you after they went on this crazy adventure together in the comic books. Like they were standing next to each other after the dust had settled and everything like that. And the Hulk looked at
Man,
him and said,
we gotta start a show. We gotta start
yeah,
a separate show podcast that just reads comics.
oh, that'd
Um,
be amazing. I'd be down for
we
that
got
hardcore.
we
If
gotta
you
do
buds
that.
are interested in that, comment down below. We're
Yes,
probably
please
going
let
to
us
do it
know if that
anyway,
interests
but
you.
comment below so that we know to notify you when we do it.
Yep.
But he looked at Spider-Man and he said, "Thank you, Peter." And Spider-Man looked at him and said, "Wait, did you just call me Peter?" And the Hulk said, "When you made everyone forget, Banner forgot.
The
Hulk
Hulk
doesn't
did not.
forget."
Yes, yes, that's awesome. I love that. I love the comics.
And
I
it's
love
like,
being a nerd.
but this is the crazy thing. The fact that the Spider-Man and the Hulk were your big main influences and everything else about comic books, that actually ties together to something. I did a little bit of research on it so I would know exactly what I'm talking about before the episode. But when I was a kid, I hated reading. I absolutely couldn't stand it. Like I didn't want to do it in school. I didn't want to do it before school. Like
Mhm.
before like in kindergarten, I just was not a fan of sitting down and reading. And like it wasn't because I struggled with it or anything like that. I just didn't enjoy it as an activity. So my mom, in an effort to try to make me more interested in reading, decided to start buying me comic books. And so she would buy me like from the dollar store where we lived, there were like these 5 packs of comic books that you could get for $1. And she would buy me these regularly, just like all the time whenever she went to the store or whatever. And they were all like B tier comics. They were all like Image Comics, like Young Bloods and Bloodshot and Cable, and like never the mainstays like Superman, Batman, like X-Men, like none of the mainstay actual valuable comics. We're talking the ones
Right,
that
right.
they could afford to pack 5 of them into a $1 package and sell them, right? And so they were like B tier comics and everything like that. And I really, really got into reading comic books. I really was engaged and involved in it. Like dove me into this world of like crazy superheroes and wild outfits and Rob Liefeld's inability to draw feet. Like it really threw me into that world. And so one day, my mom came home from the mall. She had gone to the local mall and she had gone to the bookstore. And in the bookstore, there was a book called Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk, Doomsday, Book One, Rampage. It was a series called Doomsday where Doctor Doom was up to no good, started making trouble in the neighborhood, got into a bunch of fights with a bunch of different superheroes, and they made a book for each one. The first one was Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk. And this book, when I say it was a book, I mean it was a fucking book. It wasn't a comic book, no pictures. There was no pictures. It was a novel, and this thing was thick with several C's, like thick. It was bigger than
Damn.
any book I had ever even looked at up to that point by a large margin. We're talking like the size of one of the Lord of the Rings books, like thick. And my mom brought this home, and for the first time in my entire life up to that point, I looked at that book and I was like, I want to fucking read that right now. I was like, I want to read this. And I picked up that book and I started reading it, and there were no pictures. Like there was a picture at each chapter, like title head, but they were just like basic chapter headers. They weren't like pictures. They were just like a little sketch, you know what I mean? To be like,
Right,
this
right.
is what this chapter's about. And I read that entire book and I wanted more. So I went out and I got another one in the Doomsday. I forget what book two is, but the first one, the Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk, is one of, first of all, the most incredible Spider-Man. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, grab it on audiobook, grab a copy of it. It's available on Amazon. Check it out. It
I'll
was
put
made
a I'll
in,
put an image up on the
yeah,
screen.
it came out in 1996 was when that book came out. And I read that, and here's I'll read you the byline. Kidnapped by a renegade secret agent named Hildebrandt, Bruce Banner and his wife Betty are horrified when their captor uses Bruce to create an army of Hulk clones, and Spider-Man must help a friend from being transformed. So basically, one of Spider-Man's homies gets kidnapped as part of this plot and is going to be transformed into a Hulk clone. And the Hulk and Spider-Man have to work together to stop Doctor Doom from doing this. And it's intense. It's fucking as intense as it sounds. It's
I w-
absolutely,
that yeah. See, I really wish that like animation studios had a little bit more
yeah.
like cartoon animation
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
because
yeah. If they
there's a lot of
adapted
cartoon
that, holy man.
right. Oh yeah, dude. Because there's a lot of cartoon animation nowadays that are way more adult centered.
Yeah. Oh
Finally,
yeah. Like
um,
like Invincible.
right. That doesn't have to be anime. You know what I mean? And we'll
Hmm.
definitely dive into anime a little bit. But it's nice that like the animation's a little bit like I don't know if you ever saw the Hulk versus animation
Hmm.
movie,
Hmm.
the one where it's Hulk
Yep.
versus Wolverine, and then Hulk versus Thor.
Yep.
Both of those were excellent. I love the fact that they took a little comic book story and put it in an animation movie. I want to see that done more often. And the
Yeah.
problem is if you have fans that try to do that, they immediately get pulled off because Disney's not making money off of it.
Well, no, and it's like that's one of the things where it is unfortunate that like because it used to be, at least in the comic book industry, that Marvel would work with licenses and
Yes.
the licenses were within reach to an independent company. So if an independent company was like, "Hey, I really want to license insert these characters," it would be doable. But the problem is that at this point, the intellectual property of Spider-Man itself is worth billions and billions of dollars. It's worth multiple billions of dollars. And if they let just anybody make a Spider-Man comic, we all know, everybody listening to the podcast knows, and you and myself know, Chronic, that there would immediately be 101 videos of Spider-Man getting sloppy toppy on the internet.
Yeah.
And Disney's like, listen, it's like a handful
Disney
ruins
can't
it for
market that
everybody. Yeah,
necessarily.
and it could potentially like, and the problem is that they are going to think in terms of the intellectual property's value. And if you've got like, a company paying to license Spider-Man and making dog shit, you need to do damage control. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And make sure that you distance yourself from the product. It's like that dude that made a fan film. Like it's one of those situations where like there's no universe in which Disney would be like, yeah, we're cool with that. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that they were very, very careful about how they worded exactly what it was and what they were doing. And so, like, and it damaged the brand enough that Disney had to make an official statement saying they had nothing to do with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, licensing things now, it costs a lot of money. And but what I think is that, like, as someone who grew up with like I said, I got into comic books and they were B tier comic books. One thing that I fucking know is that there are so many amazing comic book properties that Disney would, first of all, doesn't own in any way, shape, form, or capacity, but that are really, really good.
Hmm.
And those, like, I think now doing Marvel is great. My camera won't focus for some reason. You buds can't see it at home, but Chronic and me can, and for some reason, whatever. I look better this way anyway. But there are a lot of intellectual properties that are phenomenal, like that are really, really good, and there's barely anything ever done with them. And I'm certain that a really good animation studio could be like, hey, I would really like to do a Youngbloods, um, like a Youngbloods
Right, right.
cartoon or animation, and nobody cares about Youngbloods. It's an Image comic property, so I don't know who owns Image at this point, like the rights to Image Comics. I'm pretty sure Image Comics still does, but that's a
I
Rob
think they do,
Liefeld.
yeah.
But that's a Rob Liefeld like property. It had basically it was a lot of like a lot of characters from basically from like that dealt with Spawn tangentially. So like
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yep.
they would have some of them like Chapel was one of the ones that was in Youngbloods, and he was originally a Spawn villain. He was another like a bounty hunter who was formerly on Spawn's like squad when he was a secret agent or whatever. And in the comic books, he was indirectly responsible for him turning into Spawn and dying and everything else, but they retconned that for the movies. But Chapel eventually realized that he was being used as a pawn by like Malbolgia and Jason Wynn, and like rebelled against it, and he went on to join Youngblood, which was a like they titled themselves as the next generation of hero, and they absolutely it was a Rob Liefeld special. Like there were rarely ever feet shown on the screen because again Rob Liefeld can't draw feet. And everybody's outfits had more pockets on it than square inches. So like, like
Excuse me.
it was Pocket City, and I still to this day think that Rob Liefeld comics are single-handedly responsible for the fact that I can never wear outfits with less than five pockets. Like, like it's like I need to
That makes sense. That makes
like it's
sense.
like I need to have sweater pockets, I need to have pants pockets, I need to have potentially more than the usual number of pants pockets. I need to have like, two in the back, two in the sides, maybe two more on the legs, like
Yeah, just in
really
case.
because all of his characters always had pockets everywhere, man. But the character design was dope. They were very original, like I mean, as original as comic book characters can be. But basically they there's so many editions of Youngblood that they could easily make an entire series of cartoons following the team, and they especially like you were saying, since the more like violent cartoons are like getting more popular now, like especially like I said with the show Invincible, like that show is extremely popular right now, and it's very very violent, and it blends Western animation with like Eastern animation, but it is like a violent show. And Youngbloods was also a violent comic book because
Yeah.
it's
Yep, yep.
associated with Spawn. So,
And speaking of Spawn and properties like that, it's interesting to kind of look at comic books and the movies that we watched as a kid in an adult light now,
oh
because
yeah,
obviously you get a full understanding of what they're doing and their motives and kind of
yeah.
are able to dig deeper into
And our views shift as well as we grow into adulthood and stuff like
right,
that.
right.
Like I mean, when we're kids, we're like, yeah, like like Batman's totally cool because he doesn't kill any bad guys, and then we're like, well, he does like permanently disable them. And he's a billionaire, so I mean, realistically, he could probably do a lot more good by just investing his money in the city,
I
rather than
saw
go,
I
rather than
saw
going around beating. Actually, it was one of my favorite memes. It was like Batman is a billionaire. He could donate a ton of money to like completely make his city poverty free, but instead he
no,
goes around at night beating up.
he's got to let his traumas
Well, I
out.
was gonna say he goes around at night beating up low income citizens in his city and permanently disabling them. Like it's like they probably only joined a gang specifically because of the fact that they're low income. So like it's like one of those things where it's one of those things where Batman basically could do a lot more good by just donating money, but he doesn't. He just beats people up, and the Joker keeps getting out. So maybe they could kill that one guy, but and like the Superman, like it's one of those things where you look at Lex Luthor and you're like, I kind of understand why he's scared because there is literally nothing you could do against Superman if he went rogue, and he does go rogue sometimes in the comics. There have been times where Superman's gone rogue, and nobody can do anything against him realistically. So it's smart for Lex Luthor to be like, "Hey, I'm not saying that he's definitely a bad guy. I'm just saying that if he's a bad guy, we should have something that's capable of stopping him."
Right. It's kind of like Captain America Civil War. It's like you want to support your superheroes because you know that they seem like good people, but to the mass 7 billion, 8 billion people on the planet, they have no clue.
Yeah. Like
So
that's
I
the thing
get
is
their
like
idea behind it.
it's like for people who weren't in New York, the only thing that they had heard about the Hulk before is the fact that if he comes to your town, it's getting destroyed. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like that's the only thing they heard. So when they hear, "Oh, he's running around the globe like as a superhero now, like under nobody's like supervision except for like his own and the homies hanging out with him," like what's gonna happen if he shows up in your town? You know, like it's like shit's gonna get rocked. And so
Yep.
like people were like, I'd kind of like to know where they are at the very least. You know what I mean? Or at least let the government know where they are
Yep.
and stuff like that. And it's like. And I mean certainly but that's the thing too is in the MCU at least we weren't really privy to exactly what was in the Accords, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's one of
Exactly.
those things
Yep.
like I'm sure if we got to sit down and read it, like with the way that Cap reacted to it and like knowing Captain America's character and the way that they portrayed him in the movies as well as the way he is in the comic books,
Right.
like if he read that,
Shout out to Chris Evans.
yeah, shout out to Chris. Friggin' perfect casting for that role.
Yep.
Like, perfect casting. And I also love the switcheroo that they did in the Deadpool movie. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but y'all need to watch that movie. That switcheroo that they pulled there was like chef's kiss. It was
He's gonna say
so,
it. He's gonna say it.
yeah, he's going to say it. And then boom, like,
What the shit?
yeah, what the shit? But, like, seriously fantastic. But, like, he was an amazing Cap. And, like, but if he had read it and he said, I feel like people's freedoms are actually going to be infringed, like, you know what I mean? Like, if he read it and he was like, oh, like, there's a clause here that says that they can just, like, straight up lock you up if they feel like you might be a threat and, like, that kind of thing. And, like, if he read, like, that, like, people's rights as living sentient creatures would be infringed upon in some way, he was probably like, I'm not going to agree to that. And that's probably why he didn't agree to it, is because of the
Right.
fact that he probably read it. And it wasn't just that they had to register the fact that they're superheroes or whatever, or like put their name in a ledger, which first and foremost is not safe or smart. Like, just for the record, like, it's not safe or smart. Like, it's like the CIA and the FBI and all that stuff. Like, if a CIA list gets leaked or like a confidential informant list gets leaked by the police or something like that, people's lives are in danger. Not just the
100%.
people on the list, but like their
Yep.
family and friends and everybody else. And like a
Yep.
superhero like attracts people of the same kind of caliber and scale. So like their danger is amplified by the fact that they've got villains with abilities that also want to fucking kill them. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so it's like it makes sense for them not to want to put their name on a list in their current location because it's not really secure or safe. And a lot of people have secret identities for that reason specifically, like Peter Parker. And like because he's a kid from Queens,
Yes. You
you
don't
know,
want
so,
him to.
like
You don't want people to know who
yeah,
he is.
yeah, he's a kid from Queens. You don't want people knowing who he is because we all saw how that panned out.
Yeah.
Yeah, not well. And so basically, it's one of those things where like if Cap read it and was like, "No, I don't think it's a good idea," there's probably a damn good reason for that. Like, and I'm
And
thinking,
right, and that's what I was kind of like getting at, like in
yeah,
terms of how you agree with Iron Man as an adult, but I mean that on like a face value side of things, where like on face value that makes sense. But you're right, especially with
yeah, because
like
Tony's just scared too. That's the reason why he
that's
wants
what
to
it is,
do it
yeah.
because
And
he's scared.
in that movie, I love how they dove into how Tony Stark is feeling the guilt of the collateral damage, and
And they
the thing
show
that
the
the thing that's
symptoms of
fucked up is
PTSD really well.
he was the only one. Like
Well, I
like
think they all dealt with it in their own way though. Like that's because like you see that
honestly,
like
they probably went with Tony Stark because that
because
was the
Wanda
most human
broke.
way to
Like
convey it.
Wanda broke completely as they showed in WandaVision. Like she
Yes.
broke completely. And people who only saw the Doctor Strange movie were like, "Man, Wanda's like a villain now. What the hell? Like, what? Like
You didn't
she's a
see
villain."
her arc.
And it's like, dude, like watch WandaVision, and you'll understand why she's the way she because. And
I
people are like,
get where
"It's so
people
dumb."
are saying it's hard to get through the first couple episodes. It was for me too because I was so thrown
Yeah.
off. I'm like,
Well, it
what the
was
f is
different.
going
And
on?
I
Yeah,
liked that
like
though because it was like it really gave me because I play Fallout and the first few episodes of the show at least really reminded me of the Tranquility Lane like
yeah,
thing in Fallout
yeah.
4
Okay,
where
no,
it's like
I can see where
everything's
you're
like
into it. Yep,
19 so
yep,
I was
well,
like I was
yep,
like,
yep,
"Oh,
yep,
this
yep,
is
yep.
crazy." It's like I Dream of Jeannie and like those old shows and like all the tropes. And like then it got into the crazy weird side of things where like Vision was like realizing he's not the real Vision and everything else and it got fucking
And this
wild.
is all in Wanda's mind. That's how
Yeah,
powerful
and
she is,
everything is
and
yeah,
like,
and she literally created this fucking giant illusion with her mind easily without even knowing she actually did it. Like she
yep,
wasn't even fully aware that she had created it. And so like she went completely crazy and like so in Multiverse of Madness they were like that's so stupid. Why doesn't she just work with America to like go to an alternate universe where she's already dead and her kids are alive so she can just go and take care of her kids in that universe or whatever. Why does she have to kill America and blah blah blah? And it's like, bro, because she was crazy.
yeah.
Like it's like try going up to
She
a
was the
fucking dude
Scarlet
high.
Witch. It was an
Yeah.
embodiment of all of her crushed
Yeah.
emotional like it
And
was
not only that, but it's
everything.
like try going up to a dude high on PCP and being like, "Hey man, let's sit down and do taxes."
Yep,
It's not gonna happen. It's
yep.
like, like the dude's not gonna like be like, "Yeah, let's sit down and do taxes," and like crush the desk in half, right? Like it's like,
Yeah, Uncle Sam. Anyways,
exactly right. Oh, I need your face. But like it's yeah, like that kind of stuff, right? And it's not gonna work. And she was fully 100% not connected in her rational thinking, so that's why she acted the way that she did and wasn't acting in a logical, rational way because she was fully checked out. And so, like, it makes sense, like, that she's fully checked out. That's why she's behaving the way she is, and she's not going to make a logical choice. If she was in a logical frame of mind, like, you don't think she's powerful enough to just be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'll help America, like, harness her powers, and we'll look through a bunch of different multiverses till I find one where I already died,
yep,
and then I'll just
yep.
go there. Like, and my kids are alive, and I'm dead, and I'll just go there and be a mom to my kids. Ta-da, done. Like, and she's not gonna think that rationally, and even Doctor Strange would have suggested that kind of thing rather than killing America,
Right. If
working
there's
like.
anything to do with like fixing
But
something like that, Strange would know.
yeah, and he knew that she was too far gone mentally to understand the concept of something like rational. So he didn't rationalize, he just tried to stop her.
I cannot get over how good Marvel did with their casting for the
Hmm.
majority of their heroes, man.
Hmm.
I really can't.
Legitimately, I know that there was some criticism like early on with some of the
Right,
casting
as
and
most of them are,
and
but
like
eventually they prove themselves. Actually,
and it's
Chris
like
Hemsworth was not well received initially as
no,
Thor at all.
no. Well, I mean, yeah, it's like because it's one of those things
It wasn't
where
his fault. It was the creative direction they were trying to take Thor at first, and
yeah.
then
Oh man,
honestly,
with the
the
Dark
Avengers
World was I
and
don't
Dark
even know if
World,
we should really talk about Dark World
yeah,
because that
like
wasn't I mean that it was
it
okay,
was
here's the
weird.
thing.
It was like a
Dark
DLC
World
for a game that came out to try to save the game.
yeah, and not and like but because like a quarter of the audience was asking for something darker and grittier and like
Yes.
and the other three quarters were like we like the direction you're going in, go that way more and keep going that way and keep
Yep.
developing him the way you are now. And like but like one quarter was like, but what if you did it dark and gritty and like crazy and like really like deep and dark and everything is
Yep.
like very serious. And then like and the people making the DLC were like, yeah, let's make that DLC deep and dark and everything else instead of
Yep.
making it the direction they
Right.
wanted
It's
it.
like Zoo Tycoon adds a very dark and serious. You know
Yeah,
what
it's
I
like
mean?
it's like
That's a
zoo.
crazy
It's like
analogy,
zoo.
but you get
It's
what I'm
like
going
well, it's
at.
like if like well, a great perfect analogy using Zoo Tycoon would be like if Zoo Tycoon was like doing okay, but they were starting to peter off a little bit, and three-quarters of the people who played were like, hey. Please add pandas and add zebras and add like a black and white animal pack. So just all kinds of animals from around the world that are black and white, whatever they are. Like
Yep.
just add that. That would be so cute, make them really adorable, give us new enclosures, give us new parks and stuff like that. And one quarter of the audience was like, maybe we could make the animals fight in an arena until one of them dies. and the people who made the game were like, that sounds like a dope idea, and then
Let's drop it.
put out the arena where the animals die.
Yep, yep.
And like and they were like, and then the three-quarters of the audience was like, what the fuck? And so they were like, no, 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 and they made their next game really good because they wanted everyone to forget about that shitty DLC.
Yep.
And that's what the Dark World was.
Yep.
But like,
It was that shitty Zoo Tycoon DLC
it
that
was, yeah, the
only a
Thor the
little
Dark
bit
World.
of the people asked for.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
honestly,
it was still Zoo Tycoon, yeah, but I mean, hardly anybody wanted it, and after it came out, the people who didn't want it were really vocal about how much they didn't want
honestly,
it.
in today's climate, I think a darker themed Thor would probably do a lot better than it did back in 2013.
I think they would have to make it a separate property. That's
It
what I
would
think. I think
like
they would have
not
to make
Marvel,
it like
like not MCU.
I think yeah, it would have to be like either a What If or an Elseworlds. Like they would have to take it outside the MCU, standalone Thor movie, not cast Chris Hemsworth, like new acting, new like everything and that kind of thing because like when we've seen like there are some shows that I know that you're not a personal fan, but like She-Hulk and there's shows like Moon Knight and that kind of thing that and Daredevil
Moon Knight was pretty decent.
that don't tonally fit the MCU, but they still fit into the overall MCU. You know what I mean? Like they
Right,
still have
right.
touches of that tone in there. But I think if they made a dark Thor movie or a grittier Thor movie, they would need to like it would need to not be part of the
You're
typical
right,
MCU
because with
universe.
those characters like Moon Knight and Daredevil and even the Punisher, because that's getting its own show again.
Yeah,
Um,
and they are
which I'm
technically part
excited
of the
about that.
MCU. They are technically
Right, right.
enveloped in the MCU.
When they were introduced in the MCU, they were introduced as this dark, gritty character. Whereas I get where you're coming from. Thor has already been introduced as a certain image.
Yeah.
So if they were trying to do that differently, they'd have to go
And
a
with Love
totally
and
different
Thunder,
script
which
and
by the way,
everything.
Love and Thunder underrated. Underrated. I know it's not the best Thor movie, but it's underrated.
I think it was they had, and I mean this like lightheartedly. They had too much fun, and that's where I think even Chris Hemsworth said that himself. He was like, I loved being on the movie. It was, like it was cool, but I noticed we had too much fun. Like there was too many ideas where we were like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's put it in there.
Yeah.
And honestly, it didn't need that. It didn't. It was a little
Yeah.
too silly, a little too goofy, and it was
Well,
just
and it did rely on the classic trope of it's been long enough that you probably should have watched it at this point, but it relied on that age old trope of love wins. You know, like
yeah, yeah.
it's like I'm gonna win with the power of love, and like it's like I get
It
it
made Thor a
because
love
honestly,
story.
but I 100% this is the thing though, is most cases, 90% of cases I would say if that happens, if it's the whole friendship wins over the power of evil and love wins over the power of evil, like most of the time I'd be like, ugh, like come on,
Right.
ugh. But with that movie, especially with his relationship with like Natalie Portman's like, like with her character and with and Gore with his daughter and like that kind of thing and like I do definitely and Thor's love for his friends, Thor's love for Korg. Like basically like it's one of those things where it definitely did really seal home the message because there is no way that Thor could have won against Gore. It's like in the comic books like he's
He's a
even more
killer of gods for a reason.
like yeah, like in the comic books he's even more powerful than he was in the movie.
That's where Marvel's
Yeah.
classic,
They
the
have to tone it
MCU,
down though
it's
because
Marvel, not
they try to
Marvel, but
ground it.
MCU has a horrible, horrible habit of toning down the villain, which I understand that is required sometimes, but they tone it down a little too much. And
I'll
where
agree with you on that a little bit.
the only one they did not was Thanos.
No, I actually with Thanos they did. They toned him down a lot compared to the comic books, which is amazing because in the comic books, like in the movie, they made it so that his means were honestly like stupid, but they had justification. Like they had
I know his means were totally different in the
yeah,
comics.
they were basically like it's like he could have doubled the resources in the universe instead of killing half
Eliminate.
the people.
Yeah.
He could have like done same thing in reverse, like just double the resources, like like be like, oh, here's like all the resources anybody could ever need, like go
Yep.
nuts, you know what I mean? Like, and he could have done that instead of eliminating, but they had to make it death because first of all, it's more impactful, duh, but second of all, because in the comic books, he literally wants to kill off not just half the population of the universe, but all of the population of the universe
As a
using the
gift of
anti-life
death.
equation as because he's trying to hit on the literal personification of death.
And that even goes into why Thanos can't stand Deadpool. But
Well, yeah, because Deadpool and Death actually have a relationship, and Death loves Deadpool and
Death is
wants
obsessed with Deadpool because
and
Deadpool can't die.
yeah, and Deadpool constantly tries to off himself, like because he wants to be with Lady Death, but he can't be because he can't die. So they
Yep.
only ever get to see each other in like fleeting moments, and it's hilarious.
It's
And
just one big cuck situation
Thanos
with Thanos and
hates it.
Deadpool. It's
And
just a big
Thanos
old cuck situation.
hates it. Yeah, so it's like and that's the thing too is Thanos like literally in the comic books, the majority of superheroes in like in the Marvel Comics universe, like Iron Man would stand literally zero chance against Thanos. He would be immediately dead. Captain America, same deal, immediately dead.
That's where I totally understand where now this is talking about the MCU. That's where like I get where they upgraded Tony with the nanotech. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well,
Because he kind of needed it for
and
a
toning
battle
down,
like that.
I think toning down Thanos was a good idea as well, though. Like basically making Thanos have a more based in kind of physics and reality strength. You know what I mean? Like he was super strong, he was super powerful, he was an extremely skilled fighter, he had the stones, so he had magical abilities and all that. But like the fact that he had more of like a physical it like because in the comic books there's no physics limitation. Like somebody my size could lift up a house, you know what I mean? And as
Right,
long
right, yeah.
as long as they can draw the house being lifted, nobody's gonna think, hey, if you pick up a house, it's not really built to be held sideways, so it would just crumble.
Yeah, it's not built to be all that weight to be held at one little
Yeah,
teeny
so
tiny
it
point.
would
Yeah.
yeah, so in the comic books you don't think about that, but if you're looking at it in a physical sense, especially next to other characters that you have to reasonably believe could actually kick his ass in some imagined scenario,
Some way or another,
yeah,
yeah.
you need to make it look like the good guys are underdogs because you want people to root for the underdogs and
By
everything
the
else.
way, Infinity War was my favorite version of the MCU Thor. That fucking avengeful,
Oh,
like going to get Stormbreaker, and whenever
yeah.
whenever he came onto that battlefield, I was
Oof.
so fucking hyped, dude.
And the moments, man, the like in my opinion, because his relationship with Captain America had been kind of building steadily in the background
Yep.
throughout the movies. Like they never really had a lot of like person to person
Interaction,
time,
really.
like high fives and stuff like that, but they did have moments together throughout the series.
Through battle. Through
Yeah,
battle.
and like battles and like they fought each other and like they basically like when Cap and Iron Man like fought Thor together and Thor fucking smashed the shield and shit. It was amazing. But like basically like they had moments together throughout the thing, and then it culminated on the battlefield with Chris Evans, Captain America, wielding Mjolnir,
Yep.
and
Yep.
like it was like, and when that hammer came past Thor, and like went straight to Chris Evans, like that was a moment that I won't forget in movie. And like people are like the Marvel movies aren't cinema or whatever, they're just like action, blah blah blah.
Like, are you shitting
That's
me?
not
Yeah.
true. There are moments
Yep.
in those movies where you were like genuinely, that is cinema. Like
Yep.
that is a moment that
Well,
like
the whole from Iron Man 1 all the way up to Endgame. I've always said this because I was very, and this is, I'm gonna, I guess this will explain why I never got huge into comic books. When
yeah.
I was young, when a lot of other like a little bit older people, me, were my age at that age, were into comic books and maybe a couple cartoons of the superheroes they love. Um, Iron
There
Man
were a
got
few
dropped
dopes. Yeah, there were a few dope Spider-Man cartoons.
when I was 8 years old. The first Iron Man movie was released,
Yeah,
so I literally grew up with the
yeah.
MCU.
Well, you were
And
literally that kid in the first Iron Man movie with the
yes,
Iron Man mask holding your hand up.
yes,
Like
that was
that was
me.
you.
So like I've always confidently said that the Marvel Cinematic Universe from Iron Man 1 to Endgame is my generation's Star Wars.
I agree
100%.
with that. I agree with
Yeah.
that. And like it's one of those things where because I agree with that in two ways. One, because it is a massive saga. Like it's actually bigger than Star Wars was originally, but it is a large saga of movies that all are interconnected and intertwined and have an
Yep.
overarching story, but they're also divisive. There are some of them that people are like, this one is crap, this one is great, this one is,
Right.
like, but
Yep.
overall, like, people are like, now, the MCU, I love it, even if there's a few things I don't like about it. Like, you don't like Captain, you don't like, not a lot of people like Marvels, like, like, not a lot of people liked, like, what is it, that TV show that they tried to do,
Oh,
Inhumans?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Like not a lot of people love that. Like not a lot of people love She-Hulk, and like there were critics of like most of the Marvel movies, Ragnarok, like
Well, even Star
Infinity
Wars
War.
fell victim of that. You
And
know
that's
what
what I
I
mean. That's
mean?
why I'm saying the
Yeah.
comparison of the two is because Star Wars
Yep.
got that as well. Like a lot of
Yep.
people, especially, and I feel like in a few years, a lot of the MCU movies that get a lot of criticism now will be fondly remembered, just like the prequels are in Star Wars.
Exactly, and that's where I kind of feel like I love the fact that we're kind of comparing it to Star Wars right now because Star Wars like that because I mean let's be honest, that's part of superhero, that's part of comics, that's
It
part
is.
of, you know what I mean. Um,
It's
it's in
nerddom.
the universe,
It's
you
part of
know.
the nerddom, yeah.
Exactly. The thing about that is because I didn't grow up, obviously, watching the first couple Star Wars movies that came out, I don't even remember the ones with like Sam Jackson and the ones that, like with
Yeah, yeah.
you're supposed to guide the, like that, like I am a
Obi-Wan, man.
hero.
I love
Yeah,
Obi-Wan.
I didn't watch that. Like I didn't grow up with that. I didn't watch it until later on, and I watched it consecutively in order.
Yeah.
And
And
the
you got the
movies
whole
that everybody
story.
said that were horrible were not bad.
I
You know what I mean?
know.
Like, I
And
was like,
even today, they're like all of the characters in those movies, like people, I remember the vitriolic hate, the hate that Jar Jar Binks got in the
yeah.
movies that he was in.
And now
The
he's one of the
hate.
most beloved
Now the
characters in the
internet
franchise.
loves him. The internet loves him. And the actor who played him got to come back in the newer Star Wars as a new
Matter of fact,
character.
he got so loved that there's like a whole theory on him being like one of the most powerful Jedis that's ever
No,
lived.
no, Sith
And
Lord. He's a Sith Lord.
Sith Lord, yeah, Sith Lords
Yeah,
that has ever
yeah,
lived.
Darth Jar Jar, man, like it's
Yep.
crazy, but like, and they hated him when that movie, like those movies first came out. People hated him, but now they love him, dude. And
Yep.
it's like one of those things where, like, I feel like the MCU is going to be the same way. People now that are like, man, Civil War was terrible, will look back at it and be like, man, remember all of these awesome moments in Civil War and all of these cool character introductions that we
I
got in
even
that
see the
storyline,
it's
and like,
man,
look at
it's
and they'll
crazy.
look at it and be like, look at Chad. Like I look at it now and go, look at Chadwick Boseman, man. That was a guy that we needed more of. Like rest in power, dude, to that guy
Yep.
because like he was hands down the best casting they ever could have had for T'Challa, and he nailed that
Perfect.
role.
Absolutely
He
perfect.
nailed that role, and it's like absolutely devastating that we won't get any more of it because he's not around anymore. But he made an impact, massive impact, not just in the MCU but for like black people in that kind of like in a mainstay role in a movie, his acting was like incredible, and like his movie really showcased a lot of really talented black actors, you know what I mean, that I
Mhm.
like. And I personally, I love it. I love seeing
You
what they did with.
bald-headed demon. I love
Yeah,
that's
you
one of my
bald-headed.
favorite lines.
Yeah, and it's like, and like like seeing what they did with the character and seeing what they did after his passing and everything was really respectful. They handled it really, really
I
well.
really had no idea how they were gonna do
I know
that.
I did not know either. I knew that Shuri would be, stepping into the role
Considered
of
the new Black
like
Panther,
like
yeah.
she would be stepping into the role, and I mean amazing because in the comic books that makes sense anyway. That's there is precedent in the comics, and even if there wasn't, and they just invented a story for the MCU, I would still be cool with it because her character is great. Like I
On the
love.
same note, though, I would not have been one of those people that would have been extremely angry if they recasted T'Challa either, as long as they made the right choice. I
They would have
also
had to,
wouldn't have.
yeah.
I also wouldn't have been angry if they made Michael B. Jordan come back and somehow have a character arc where he became the new Black Panther, as
Michael B.
Killmonger.
Jordan is incredible. Michael
Yeah,
B.
like
Jordan, I love
if they
Michael B.
could have somehow
Jordan.
brought Killmonger back and made him like
But I like the message in his death.
good.
I liked him. I liked him as
100%.
what.
Like
So
they
like
ended it
I
perfectly.
think Shuri is literally the best choice they could have made because any other actor getting recast as T'Challa, like stepping into his
That's
shoes,
hard.
especially in like when he very firmly established that character as his. That would be like at that point, even though like Chadwick had only been in like Black Panther and Civil War at that point, I think. Like it was one of those things where he was so seen as that character, he was the only person who could have been that character, that it would have been like recasting RDJ.
Yes.
Like it's like or
Yes.
Chris Evans, like at that point, like because you
Or
look
any
at
of them. Let's be honest. Any of them.
any of
Yeah.
them at that point, like you just couldn't do it at that point because they're so ingrained as that character, and not only that, but he nailed the role so incredibly well, like the depth of the character and like the like rage that the character felt at his father's death, and like the calculated like wanting to get like revenge and then realizing revenge isn't what his father would have wanted and it wasn't really required in that situation. The whole
Right.
development that he
Yes.
came
It,
to,
it was awesome. They
like
did it
it,
in a
like
good way.
yeah, like the development that they went through from like wanting to end Bucky to like helping Bucky become the White Wolf.
Yes. Yes.
Like
Yep.
that, like frankly, was absolutely incredible, and Boseman nailed it. So like, it's one of those things where I think in years people are gonna look at all of these movies and see those moments and see those character developments and see
And be like,
those
wow,
like
this was great.
and be like,
Yeah.
fuck, man. Like, maybe I was a little overcritical of that because I didn't like
Yep.
the style, or maybe like I was overcritical of this because I
Because
had a bad
I wanted
opinion
it to
about,
be a certain way,
yeah,
and
like because
that's
I had an opinion stuck in my mind,
yep.
and
And
yeah,
and let's be honest, everybody changes, and
mhm,
that's the thing. And what's funny too is when you talk about how Chadwick Boseman kind of made it himself, the character his, and he absolutely did. Same
yeah,
thing with Robert Downey Jr. With
yeah,
Tony Stark. Tony Stark never really was like that kind of cocky the way that Robert Downey Jr.
ooh,
does it. He was
no,
actually kind of an asshole and a
he was an
drunk.
alcoholic asshole,
Yeah,
man, yeah,
yeah. So he really changed that character into something that's beautiful. And now even newer comic book adaptations of Iron Man are based off of Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Iron Man, like
yeah,
more cocky, more because he made the character better. Let's be
yep,
honest. And
yep.
and that I love that. And now my question for you was, how do you feel about how Jeremy Renner made Hawkeye his own? Because Hawkeye was actually more of like a direct, smartass, almost a Deadpool type character in the comics in a way.
I
And then
absolutely
Jeremy
adore
Renner
it.
made him, yeah, Jeremy Renner made him almost more militaristic.
I adore it. I absolutely love it. I like the fact that they
I love
decided
Jeremy
to.
Renner off the bat.
Yeah, I
Awesome. I'm
love the
happy
fact
he didn't
that
get through that accident.
yeah, yes, and I love the fact that they decided to tie his and Natasha's story together a little bit more. Like
I
because
loved it.
they were like they did interact in the comic books, but it wasn't to the level that they did in the movies. They really developed
They
that
actually built
relationship there.
a connection between the two
Um,
characters.
I love the fact that they touched on his Ronin story arc when his family was
I
killed,
love
like
that.
his
I
family
love
was
that.
snapped. Like in the comic books, it's because his family was killed.
Yes.
But thankfully, like his family wasn't killed because I love his family. I love the dynamic he has when they
That
all
was
go
my
to his farm.
favorite part of like that whole
Yeah,
like what movie was it that entered was it
the Civil War.
Civil War,
They
yeah, when they
needed a place
introduced
to
him, yeah,
go.
I
Yeah, they
love
needed a
that.
place
That
to
was
go where
awesome.
they could
Yep.
lay low, and he said that it was completely off the record, and it was a place that they could go, and they went there, and his whole family was there, and they're like, "Who the fuck are these people?"
Yep.
Like,
And then you realize that
and he's
Natasha
like,
knew them the entire time.
"Yeah, yeah, exactly."
Knew
And she
that
just
his wife was
and
pregnant, was
and of
hoping
course,
for a girl,
yeah, and of course she didn't say anything because she's a fucking super spy.
Yeah, exactly. She ain't gonna say
And
nothing.
yeah, and so it's one of those things where basically the way that they did that was fantastic, and I love the fact that he he had struggles a lot more because the comic book character and a lot of cartoon iterations, like he was just Marvel's version of Green Arrow, basically, because Green Arrow was
Yes.
really
Yes.
popular. Green Arrow was really popular, and he was like Marvel's version, so he was basically Green Arrow, but wearing purple and smart alecky. He and
Yes.
like cocky and like kind of like
You
talky and
see it in
like
some of the
chatty,
animations today.
and yeah, and so it's one of those things where I really enjoy the fact that Renner like showed the struggles of the character a lot more. Like he was literally deaf. Like he had hearing aids, and that was actually part of his character, which also shout out to the MCU for showcasing peoples with disabilities in like being completely functional human beings.
Yes.
The fact that he had hearing loss and everything else was so
I love the fact they didn't
inconsequential.
even note it up until
That's
a
what I mean.
certain point.
It was so inconsequential to anything that he did that nobody really bothered to point it out until it was
I think
like,
they didn't point it out until the Hawkeye TV show.
yeah. And even then, it was only because it was like necessary. You know what I mean?
Right, they're like,
And
"You can't
like,
hear me." He's like,
yeah,
"Yeah, my
like
yeah."
his hearing aids got broken. Actually, I read a funny meme online about that as well. That it would be, they were like, it wouldn't it be hilarious if like Barton just randomly turned off his hearing aids whenever he just didn't feel like listening to anybody or he wanted some peace and quiet. So like basically, and he would do it like randomly, like when Tony would go on a long monologue about what they're doing on their mission and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
He'd
that'd be
just like turn them
hilarious.
off, and then Thor, like Thor doesn't know that he's hiding it from everybody else. So at some point or another, he looks at Hawkeye and says, "Barton, turn on your ears so that you can hear this. It's hilarious." And everybody else is like, "Wait, what does he mean? Turn on your ears?" And it like he gets busted.
Yep, yep.
But
I could see it's like, "Barton, turn on your
yeah,
ears. This
Barton,
is
turn on your ears. This
crazy
is
humor."
hilarious. Yeah, like that kind of thing, right? And so I think it's really cool, like what they did with the character because it definitely I feel like it took him from being like a joke character because people often refer to Hawkeye in the same breath as they refer to Aquaman. Like they're kind of like Aquaman is like the least useful, even though in the DCU they made him like super strong and powerful and stuff like that. In the comic books, mostly he just talks to fish and swims fast. Like
Yeah, they had
like
to. Let's be honest, they had to beef him up in the
Like, and so, like, but I mean,
universe.
in more
Yeah,
recent comic books, I mean, he's a little bit more threatening. But I mean, in the early comic books, in the most of the comic books, he's like a joke character. They're like,
yep,
we've got like a guy who can like throw an entire city, and we have a dude who can talk to fish. You know, like, and
yep.
it's like Aquaman. We're gonna call you whenever we do something on the ocean. Um,
You're right.
but
Because other than that, he's just swimming with dolphins.
but Hawkeye like was that joke character where they're like, "Oh, Hawkeye, we'll call you if we need to take down some fucking bandits in the woods and stuff like that,"
Yep,
right? Like and that kind of
yep,
thing.
yep.
And so I think it's really cool. They showed, especially the fact that like when he was talking to Natasha, he said, "I'm not. I'm gonna go like after we're done in here, I'm gonna go back out there and I'm gonna go fight aliens with a string and a stick, not because like." You know, not because I want to, but because it's my job. And like he fucking goes and does
He
it.
was talking to
Or
Scarlet Witch, I
yeah,
think.
Scarlet. Yeah, he was talking to
Yep,
Wanda, and
yep.
he was like, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna be an Avenger, not because I want to, but
I
because it's
love
my
that moment.
job.
I love that moment.
Like you know, and like
They really built
it's
such a
amazing.
like an awesome character with him. I'm
They
really happy
did,
that Jeremy Renner does an excellent job.
and he sold Natasha's sacrifice so well. Like she got fucking mourned, man. Like
Yeah.
people often say, like they're like, oh man, it's so stupid. Like basically like this person died and they were sad for like for ages and like when she died they were like sad for 2 minutes and then moved on and I'm like or like when Tony died they all like broke down and had a moment but when she died it was just kind of like oh boo-hoo and then they moved on. I was like that's no like watch Hawkeye for literally every other scene that he is in after
He's
that
depressed
point
as
he
shit.
doesn't smile again. He doesn't smile again.
Neither does Hulk.
And like I don't think Banner or Hawkeye smiled again until I think it was the She-Hulk show was the next time we see Hulk smiling and Hawkeye in the show he
Yep.
smiles in that show and I think that's the first time you see them smile after that point. It doesn't
Yep.
happen again. And it's like yeah like they weren't like they weren't sad and they didn't mourn her. They were literally finishing
Oh,
saving the
they
world.
absolutely did. And here's the
And
thing, it
yeah.
was also the timing of her death. Like whenever she died, they still had to do shit. So they had to like they had to like mourn relatively quickly because they still had shit to do. You
Yeah,
know,
well, that's
like
what I mean. Like, they're still saving the world. Like,
yep.
they can't really stop
They
the
can
cry
put that
right
on
now.
pause, especially now they have all the stones. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And not to mention Nebula went back in time with them, the Nebula that was with Thanos.
yeah.
And like that was oh man, I love that movie was great. They did
It was so good.
such a great
They did
job.
an incredible job. Like they did.
Such a
Well,
great
they
job.
really did. And I think in a, like we were saying, in a few years, those movies are going to be seen as classic. And I'm glad that now that we're adults, we can appreciate them more. And
Yep.
like it's great because when I watch them as an adult now, I feel like a kid again. Like when
Hmm.
I was a kid, first getting into comic books, first getting into cartoons, first getting into like these goofy, crazy characters that are larger than life. When I'm an adult, I can look at them, watch them, and feel that way. You know?
When I'm an adult, all I want is video games off of them. so I can play as him. That's all I want. I just want to play like
insert.
Please do the Hulk Ultimate Destruction remastered. We need it. We must have it. Please.
Make it co-op, and I'll play as Emil Blonsky. I'll play as Abomination. He'll play as Hulk, and we'll run around that city just smashing the crap out of people, man.
Yes, taking down buildings, all that stuff. We might have to do that. That might be that'll be the first video game that we put into production is a Hulk Ultimate Destruction remaster. But we'll have to call it a different name because obviously copyright issues.
We'll get the CFO to look into financing and how much licensing would cost for that. But we'll see what happens. As the COO, we'll make sure that we get the right people on it.
Yep. Awesome. Awesome.
But that said, though, I do believe we are running out of time for today.
Damn.
Yeah, but that's all right, because that just means that the buds can tune in for the next episode, and if they haven't watched the last episode, they can go and check that one out.
Absolutely. They're going to... Listen, this is awesome that we're on the third episode already. It's being very consistent.
Oh.
I noticed that our likes are pretty consistent. Man, it's just going to be awesome. It's just going to be awesome. You know,
and share us with your friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah, do it. Do it. Do it. Hulk is hiding in your closet right now, making sure that you do it. So I would do it.
We don't want to make him mad. We know what happens.
You wouldn't like him when he's hungry.
Yeah, that's the Sasquatch.
Angry. Angry. All right.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all later in the next one.
Outro! So that's it for today's episode, buds. Share your opinions on the topic in the comments section down below so we know how you feel about things, and maybe suggest some ideas for future episodes.
Also, you can check out our social media on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and more in the description below.
And if you're watching or